Mr. Bobbitt is a novelist and playwright. He has 2 of his novels back on the table back there that are available for purchase, and they're basically set in Cedar Key. He has also has some plays that he has written, including Trailer Park Elegy and a play called Cedar Key. He says describes his work as dramedy, meaning a humor to tackle heavy human issues in a way that it reflects instructive moralization. His writing is deeply rooted in places, and you'll notice all this about Cedar Key. He's actually a commercial real estate appraiser, and he's a clam farmer. I understand he's known as the Clambassador. You can find more information about his work on his website. But I want to say also that I heard Mr. Bobbitt speak at the Friends of the Library annual meeting last year, 2024. And that was about Cedar Key, but it was prior to a hurricane. And this speech that's coming to you from Mr. Bobbitt this evening is post-hurricane. And as the title suggests, it's Community as a Shelter in the Storm. Cedar Key's resiliency, battling generational hurricanes. Please welcome Michael Presley Bobbitt.
Hello, friends. Thank you so much for having me. I did get to speak at last year's Friends of the Library. I was deeply honored to be a part of that, and I'm deeply honored to be here today. I do live in Cedar Key now, but I came to Cedar Key by way of 20 years living here in Gainesville. Some of you I know have seen my plays. My play Sunset Village was a big hit here in town, and I served on the board of directors of both the Crosstown Repertory Theater and the Gainesville Community Playhouse for many years. So I live on the island now, but I feel like I've got Gainesville in my guts. And this library in particular, this is such an extraordinary full circle moment for me. When I got out of the Navy in 1998, I had $17 in my pocket when I showed up here in Gainesville to visit some friends who were going to the university, and I just never left. And this particular library, I got myself a gig at the Presbyterian Student Center. I got to live there for free in exchange for mowing the yard and cooking the Wednesday night spaghetti suppers. And I would walk down to this library to look at the classified ads in the newspaper. Imagine a time when newspapers were printed on paper, and I had so little money I would come to look at them here at the library, and I found my first job in Gainesville at a free newspaper here in this library. So it is an extraordinary honor to be here speaking to you people from the foundation. So as the title suggests, we've had a rough year in Cedar Key. When I came here last year for the Friends of the Library, it was just literally days before Hurricane Helene made landfall. And I don't want to give away too much, so I'm just going to work through the presentation here and sort of narrate it. I stayed behind during the hurricane. I had some elderly neighbors that refused to leave. There's something about the island ethos and the Florida ethos that we think we can just ride out any hurricane. This was a generational hurricane. And in fact, at the height of the storm, I was able to rescue 2 of my elderly neighbors whose house was being flooded. We were able to pull them through the floodwaters and put them in my house on the hill. So like an idiot, I stayed behind, but I documented the storm all throughout the storm. So you'll get to see some of the damage here in my presentation. And then hopefully at the end, I can tie it all in to how community is really the thing that's most needed in the world, and how the library and the Library Foundation in particular really represents the best that mankind has to offer. So here we go. So we can't really tell the story of the hurricane in Cedar Key until we tell the story of the Great Fire. 3 days before the hurricane, Steamers, our favorite restaurant in town, caught on fire. It was almost certainly started by an arsonist, and it devastated this beautiful restaurant looking out over the water. I was coming in from having just pulled 250,000 nursery clams off my clam lease on my clam boat, and the fire department was waving me over. This is our hero firefighter, Jamie McCain. He called me over on my clam boat, and we fought the fire from the water for 3 or 4 hours while the fire department fought it from the other side. This is a beautiful photo here. And these hoses are so powerful, and to watch Mr. McCain refuse to let go of it through 4 hours of work, we were able to put the fire out and keep all of Dock Street from burning down. This is the owner here, watching the business that he put every red cent he had on earth, watching it go up in flames.
This is firefighter Daniel King on the back deck of the Julia Lane, trying to make some headway against the fire on steamers. The kitchen now is completely gone, but right now, we've got it held in place. Might be able to sit in the dining room. This man is relentless. He's been out here working at it for hours.
This brigade is really just an example of the best of what community has to offer. This is the aftermath. The person that owned the building to the right of steamers, just that week they began being fined $500 a day for not cleaning up the damage to the building from the previous year's hurricane, and miraculously the building caught on fire the next day, so that's been pretty terrible. Just 2 days after that, we had our annual coastal cleanup day, where people come from all over the state to help us clean up the coastal waters. These are the ladies that lost their jobs at steamers on my clam boat, picking up pieces of the restaurant that they used to work at out of the water and off all the barrier islands, and doing so joyfully because they cared so much about the island. And then 2 days after that, I was here giving a speech to you guys in this very room. There you are. So I can see some of you in the speech. And little did we all know that we were 4 days away from landfall of the most catastrophic hurricanes to ever hit our island. And it was really, literally within the next 12 hours, we started to see these images all over TV. And to see Cedar Key in the center of the cone, I had never thought that we would hear Cedar Key so often on national news. But it was a really harrowing lead up. And all of the models continue to look worse and worse and worse. And they're on the island because I'm the clam ambassador, which is a character I developed to help market the clam industry. I would give sort of lighthearted weather broadcasts for the Clam Ambassador News Network, never thinking that it would eventually be happening in the midst of a great storm. So throughout some of these videos, you'll see I'm broadcasting as the Clam Ambassador News Network. And then just hours before the storm was set to start making landfall, we all decided to go back to steamers and try to salvage what we could out of the restaurant. And you can see it was just a total loss. The building is still completely unusable. And then here the first feeder bands are starting to arrive on September 26th. And you can see we're an island 5 miles out of the Gulf of Mexico, just dangling like a pearl. And we're particularly exposed. It's just starting to pick up here. And we just had no idea that right where I'm standing here would be 12 feet underwater in just hours.
Hello, friends. This is Action Weatherman, Professor Bobbitt, coming to you live at 8:40, right outside the bar. And the storm surge.
So here at 8:40, the water is starting to come up 2nd Street, and our faraway inn, which is one of the beautiful old Florida motels with little individual cottages. A young couple had just put every penny they had on earth the year before into buying these cottages, and they were completely devastated by Hurricane Idalia, and one of the buildings was carried away. They had literally the week before just finished putting them all back together when the storm came, and you'll see in a moment, just completely devastated and took all the buildings away. When you think about someone saying, oh, there's 12 feet of storm surge. I mean, I've been in 12 feet of water before, you're like, that's no big deal. But it's 12 feet of water moving with the force of a rushing locomotive. In all of my life, I've never seen a power as powerful as these storms. So here is the faraway end, starting to just come apart.
For the Clam Ambassador News Network, this is Action Weatherman, Professor Bobbitt, coming to you live from the faraway end. The storm surge is coming. It's higher than Idalia already. It's almost at 10 feet. And the high water's out for another hour and a half. Oh my gosh. That building there is going to come apart. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
It just gets worse from here. So some of our houses start to become inundated.
11:30 p.m. This is 2nd Street. The water's coming up almost to Joe Lee's house.
street, our main drag when you get to town. Our historical museum is there. It really houses the history of our island, two 18th century buildings with the most magnificent exhibits. Here's the water overwhelming it.
11:30. This is the museum. Oh no. It's chest deep here now. Oh no, the water's making it in the museum. I'm not gonna go much further. It's not there in my head. I just saw a car. Watch down this road. No, that's somebody's porch. Whoa, 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 there's a car there. There's the coffee shop. Halfway in the door. I'm gonna put the video around and show you.
How deep is this?
For the Little News Network, this is actually Weatherman Mike and Presley Molly. This is the museum. Alright, get out of here. That's a pretty good cut.
So about 30 minutes later, back to far away in, and you can see the water's rising up and up and up to the roof line. And in another 30 minutes, these buildings are being carried into the Gulf Race. And then one of our neighborhood streets became a raging river.
This is the corner of Keynote North, that is Ward Ames. The road is completely washed out. These are roads to the river. Oh my God.
And you can see that was the result of that street. And my poor friend Hannah lived on this street. And one of the saddest parts of this ordeal is people knew that I stayed behind. And the folks that wisely left were just desperate for any news they could get of their homes. And so throughout the height of the storm and the following days, because it was 3 full days before they would let anyone on the island, I worked myself into exhaustion trying to see. I think I photographed 80 properties. And of those 80 properties, 50 or 60 of them were the worst news I ever had to deliver in my whole life. So here is the video of Hannah's house, my neighbor.
I'm so sorry, Hannah. It's halfway up the wall.
And you can go all the way up to the front of those windows.
I'm sorry, Frank.
And then here's my house, which the water kept from going into the house. But my neighbor's house right next door completely destroyed.
Holy cow. This is 3rd Street. Heading down toward the market. This is unbelievable. This little blue mobile home is halfway submerged. I'm not going to be able to make it down to the market. It's neck deep here. Holy cow. The market. Oh God, the market. Give you an idea how deep it is here. Just down from my house. This is a city parking lot. Oh God. This tree is almost completely covered up. I don't know what we're gonna do, friends.
So then, as awful as that was, then the daylight came, and we started to assess the damage. This is the roof of a historic house that was 130 years old. You can see that it's not with its house anymore. And just everywhere it was just totally unbelievable devastation. Our hardware store had its back wall ripped out. Here's the inside. And when you live in a small island like this, the hardware store is one of the beating hearts of the island. If you lose a screw or a bolt, you can run down and get it. For the 9 months or 10 months that the hardware store was closed, if you lose a screw or a bolt, it's the drive to Gainesville or Chiefland. So this one hit me especially hard. This house was picked up off its foundation and moved and dropped and was completely destroyed. This was the Big Deck. If any of you have been down to the Big Deck bar on Knox Street where they have the live music and the great fried shrimp, there's just an empty space where the Big Deck used to be. And steamers, a sad sidelight of this is to the right here, where the building where an active arson investigation had been going on, all the evidence was swept away. And the fire marshal had to come and give us the report that there was nothing else they could do to catch the folks we all knew had set the fire. These are those beautiful condos right by the bridge there. The entire bottom floors were devastated. You can see the pool has been wiped away. Right now, all of these buildings are being raised about 15 feet. We're about halfway done. So these ones that were down at the water's edge are now 15 feet up as we start to rebuild. This was a 130-year-old house that's no longer there. This is a really sad image to me. You can see that island in the background. That's at Cinnamote. That's the first barrier island across the shipping channel. The whole town of Cedar Key used to largely be on this island before the Great Cedar Key hurricane of 1896 washed everybody out in the middle of the night into the channel. And almost every building on that island was destroyed, save for about 6 or 7 houses. These were 2 of these houses, where you see where the foundations where the houses used to be. They were floated over on barges after that great hurricane. And I think we should probably stop calling it the Great Hurricane because Hurricane Helene dwarfed the impacts of that storm. But to see these legacy houses that are, older than the town of Cedar Key itself, to see the empty spaces where all of those family legacies are simply gone, was a lot to take in. My son lives in a little house that was floated over on a barge. We're both history fanatics. My house was built in 1884, and his was built in 1872, so he makes fun of me all the time for having one of those modern houses, because his is older than mine. This house right across the street, just gone. There's something strangely beautiful about this photo, friends. This is a 1960s handmade mullet boat. And you can even see the mullet net on the back there. This was an exhibit sitting in the yard of the museum. It had been an exhibit for more than 20 years. And there's something ironic and hauntingly beautiful about this old boat. It broke its moors, and it got to spend one more night on the Gulf waters. And this boat is a memento to a legacy that was lost when the constitutional net ban happened. So the next morning, seeing this boat so perfectly floating in the middle of one of our streets was pretty iconic. So this was our liquor store and our post office. So we can't write for help and we can't drink to make it better. So this was my first reaction at daylight.
Hello, friends. For the Clan Ambassador News Network, this is Action Weatherman Michael Presley Bobbitt, coming to you live from what used to be Cedar Key, Florida. After the most punishing night any of us could ever have imagined, the morning is breaking, bright and beautiful, which is a cruel irony of the scenes we're seeing around the island. Entire houses are missing or flattened in on themselves. The hardware store is gone. The downtown Jiffy completely destroyed. The post office destroyed. Ryan's Big Deck is gone. It's hard to take in. However bad we imagined it would be when we were fighting this thing in the darkness, it's so much worse in the daylight. This recovery will be measured in years and years, not months. And I suspect we'll see a mass exodus from the island. We're going to find out who really loves Cedar Key, friends. It's unbelievable. Godspeed, Cedar Key.
So I am happy to report that the silver lining is the recovery has not taken years. And that's due to the awesome power of community as exhibited by our little island. Whenever I give speeches about my books or my writing, there's an inside joke amongst folks that know my writing. I only ever really write about one thing. I write about the power of the extended families that we make for ourselves, the communities that we make for ourselves as a defense against the brutality and sometimes senselessness of life on Earth. And certainly the library and the foundation, the community you guys have built here is a good example of that. And I think what we're missing most in the world is the ability to live in true community with our neighbors, to know our friends. So it didn't take years. So here's some more images of the destruction, but only so that I can lead to the silver lining, the happy ending of the story. This is a house that I came to and was shocked that I thought, well, there's only a little bit of damage on the front. This was going to be one of those 75 phone calls that would be a good one, until I walked to the back of the house, and it looked like a dollhouse. Half the house had been simply cut away, and this is the view from the living room, and an amazing artist lived here, and not only was her art in the home, but priceless art from around the world, and just gone, just carried into the Gulf. Our library, thankfully, endured. The entire downstairs was flooded. We had moved all the books out, but you can see here the water line, how deep it was, and this was at sort of a high spot on the island, and you can see it was nearly head high there. So the whole downstairs had to be rebuilt, but we saved all the books. Our county really came after us about thinking that the expense of having this library was too much. Myself and others raised holy hell about it and said, look, we're already out here, dangling out by ourselves out on this island. You can't take the beating heart of the community away from us, which is always the library, and we were able to get it saved. This was my houseboat. This is an old 1968 houseboat that I found floating in the back bayou. These fellows had been using it for a crystal meth lab, and their operation turned sour when they blew up and caught on fire. So I was able to buy it for real cheap, and I spent a year of my life renovating it and making it amazing. And this is where I work. This is where I write my books and plays. It was picked up and set on top of that building there, and then when the floodwaters receded, it flipped over sideways. So this was an ordeal to deal with.
Hello from Cedar Key, Florida. Against the backdrop of all this serenity, I'm reminded that for everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose on earth. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which has been planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. Hurricane Helene has brought so much destruction to our tranquil island, but now is the time to build up. And here in Cedar Key, that's exactly what we're going to do, friends. Godspeed, Cedar Key.
And it is what we did. An incredible mobilization of people that love the island, literally from around the world. Friends flew in from all over the globe to help. There was a remarkable mobilization of local, state, federal, and civilian agencies showed up, and we all just left, and every morning we would head out with a trash bag or a rake or a shovel, and we would coordinate with one another about who needed what. And I just think this image is so beautiful. Mr. Hank here being pushed by a guardsman. And really everyone showed up. Some of the buildings on Dock Street that had been, their doors had been wiped away. So my buddy and I just put temporary doors on them so they could lock up their businesses. And then the aid started pouring in by the truckload.
Hello, friends. For the Great American Church Network, this is Action Brother Man Michael Presley Bobbitt, coming to you live from the Church of Christ here in Cedar Key, Florida. These Church of Christ folks are not playing around. We've got 3 trucks coming in today with all kinds of supplies. If you need a rake or a shovel or a chainsaw or a washing machine, or you need to borrow a generator or food or clothes, come on down to the corner of 3rd and E Street and let these kind folks hook you up with all manner of disaster relief. Give it to them here for updates as they become available.
And this went on for 3 solid months. There's a little joke on the island that we never eat better than in a couple months after a hurricane, because people came in and made food for us. Everywhere we went, there was food so that we could all get back out and keep working. Then they tried to steal our children. The county education board said that your school grounds are not safe. So as of, 3 days later, all your kids are going to have to go to Chief One High School. And that just would not do. That would not square with the island ethos. Our island kids need to be on the island with us. So an incredible effort was mobilized. Everything stopped and everyone swarmed to the school. And in 3 days, we rebuilt the school from shambles to, well, first of all, we just flatly refused. We said, you'll have to come kidnap our kids. They're not going. But we got the school up at the 11th hour. We were able to twist their arms and the kids were able to stay. But at every corner, you can see, if you didn't have to be a big aid agency. Here's a lady who set up the table and made sandwiches for folks, and drove to Chief when to get bottled water. It was just the most remarkable outpouring of love and support. And then there was the long slog of once the rush and exhilaration exhilaration of the event had passed, of just watching lives being piled up into the trash heap. And there was a psychic cost to be paid for months and months, but we dug in and we did the work, and we were supported by all the agencies. I grew up in the city of Bartow, Florida, in Polk County, and the city of Bartow found out that one of their native sons was in this hurricane. They were watching my videos. I was on 200 news networks around the world. And in fact, Ron Cunningham, our terrific editor, the Gainesville Sun, he called me up and he said, "I'm an actual journalist. I've never been on the BBC. I've seen your redneck tail on here every day this week." Well, so did my hometown. And they sent a single electric truck to help because that's what they could do to help. And if I live to be 200 years old, I'll never forget the image of the city of Bartow rolling onto my little island 3.5 hours away. So I put my notoriety to use as a writer and a provocateur on the internet, and all of my friends and supporters from around the world started sending money to the island. And in 4 days, we were able to raise $43,000. These are $1,000 checks to go to people that lost their jobs and their homes. And it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get a hotel room off the island for a week if you needed to. It was enough to pay the light bill, and just totally overwhelming. This is the inside of my houseboat after it was flooded with water. My friends helped me fix it. And in fact, the second novel, Forever Cedar Key, was written right here in this renovated space. This boat was underwater. And then finally, my last slide, since we started with steamers being destroyed by the Great Fire, when this sign went up, we're building a brand new steamers building right now, but we couldn't wait to have to eat our clams and our delicious seafood, so the owner, who also owned a small breakfast cafe that did not get inundated, so now the breakfast stops at 11, and steamer starts after that, so we're able to have our steamers back. So I really just I want to share the story of what we went through here at the island, but not so that you feel bad about us, or not just because it's provocative and interesting, although it is that, but to show what a profound impact it made on so many of us, to see that at our darkest hour, especially in a place like Cedar Key, where we're used to feeling like we're on our own, and in fact we take some pride in feeling like we don't need anything from anyone, to see the incredible outpouring of support and community was really one of the most heartening experiences of my life. And so any chance I get to talk or go anywhere to tell this story, or to tell the story of the little tiny community of Cedar Key, the answer is always yes. And again, to bring it back to what you guys do, I know about the great work the foundation does. I know that you raise money for the endowment that helps to put on some of the programs that's outside the library's budget. I know you help with some of the Wi-Fi to go for the students that need it. I know you handle some of the student programs. One of the great spiritual things that are missing in our lives in the modern world is something beyond ourselves to work and care about it. I'm so thankful for people like you at this foundation and people at the library that care about something beyond their day-to-day. I'm so glad to be a part of this community, and I'm so thankful to talk to you here today. Thank you so much.